All right, guys, what we're going to talk about now are translations. So we're going a little bit more in depth into the three rigid transformations we talked about in the last video. Translations, I think, are probably the easiest to explain, the simplest to visualize. The issue with transformations when we're doing them on paper is it can become somewhat difficult to visualize what the shape is going to look like after we've moved it, after we've transformed it. With translations, it's a little less difficult because the image simply slides. So it maintains the same orientation or like direction that it's facing. So we're going to start off. There are three key ways that you're going to learn how to do these. Vector notation, coordinate notation, and written. So that one is probably the easiest. We're going to start with that. Looking up here, we have number one, which says translation, 5 left and 3 up. The hardest part of translations, and it's not actually a particularly difficult part, but the hardest part of it is making sure that we measure point to point. One of the biggest issues people have is they'll say, oh, well, I need this to go 5 left. It's easy to do. But when we're reading translations, we can't just say, well, how far apart are, let's say, well, that's even a bad example. Here, how far apart are these? Well, it's easy to say, well, it looks like about 2-ish. We need to measure point to point. So J to J prime, V to V prime, T to T prime, so on and so forth. So don't try to skip any steps on this. It's going to make life a lot more difficult. So I'm going to go through this point by point. We're going to start with this point right here. We need that point to go 5 left and then 3 up. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 3 up. 1, 2, 3. That point, we'll just give this a name. I'm sorry, not A prime. A has now translated here to become A prime. This point, we'll call it B, needs to go 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 3 up, 1, 2, 3. And that has become B prime. And I'm going to connect. And then this point, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, which we'll call C, therefore it creates C prime, and then this is D. And that's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3. D prime. So we have now successfully translated image ABCD. I wrote prime again. ABCD along this translation, which is 5 left and 3 up. But it's not always going to be written this way. There's actually 2 other key ways to write this. And one of them is called coordinate notation, and it's actually very simple. We're going to write x comma y, then an arrow. This means the original image right here. And for each x and y, what we are going to do is we are going to translate x. Well, let's look at this. We went 5 left, which on the x-axis means we are moving toward the negatives. So x minus 5. And for y, we moved up, which is positive on the y. So we say y plus 3. Now when I read this, I see that I need to subtract 5 from all of my x's, and I need to add 3 to all of my y's. So if we were to look at this in terms of a table, we have A. The original coordinate of A was 2, 0. Well, then I have to say, under translation, x minus 5, y plus 3. I should get, I'm running out of room here, an A prime that is, well, what's 2 minus 5? Well, it's negative 3. And 0 plus 3 is 3. So A prime should have ended up at negative 3, 3. Well, let's see. Negative 3, 3. A prime did, in fact, end up where it needed to. So this coordinate notation allows us to complete translations without needing to do this whole counting thing or even using a graph. We could do this without a graph. We could simply be given a coordinate and then a translation, and we'd be able to successfully do that. And then finally, there's vector notation. Now this, you're not going to see as much this year, but hopefully you can see the similarities here. All it does is we're putting it inside these pointed brackets, and we're taking out the x and the y. But you do get the idea. It is very similar. You will use this a little more in physics next year, so we just want to make sure that you understand it as a thing. You may see it occasionally, but the majority of the time in Math 1, you're going to see it in one of these two ways. Now, we are going to erase these. We are going to go through a few more of these really quickly, and we're going to be scaffolding up in our Bloom's levels, meaning we're going to start off with some simpler ones that are a little more memorization and memory, and then we're going to actually have you guys creating some of these. So let's go through this. Translation: 2 left, 4 up. Well, 2 left, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. And here is my new image. Now, just for the extra practice, you could try this and say, well, what was the translation in coordinate notation? Well, it appeared to be x minus 2 because we went left, y plus 4 because we went up. Or if we wanted to do it in the vector notation, we could have done -2 plus 4. Now we're going to come over here. And there's a couple of these that we're going to do where we actually have to say what the translation was. Now, the first thing we need to do is we need to identify which is the original image. And the original image is the one without the prime. So as I'm looking at this, I see that the original image is, in fact, the black triangle, not the blue triangle. Now I need to count what happened. Well, it appears that it has gone down 1. So down 1 and left, no, I apologize, right 2. So I could say right 2, down 1. I could write it as x, y, x plus 2 because we went right, y minus 1 because we went down, or plus 2 minus 1. Come over to 8, and again we're measuring point to point. What is the original image? Well, I see a V here and a V prime here, which means the black quadrilateral is in fact the original. So in order to verify what happened, it appears we have gone left 1 and up 1. Left 1, up 1, or x, y, x minus 1 because it's left, y plus 1 because it went up. And again, vector notation, minus 1 plus 1. All right, guys, hopefully that has helped out a little bit. If you do have any other questions, please feel free to let me know, and have a great night.